Roma manager Jose Mourinho getting punished by UEFA, banned for 4 matches for directing a foul and abusive language towards the referee Anthony Taylor at the Europa League final. You may remember the video that went viral. We were doing the show, actually, Simon and I, the day afterwards, where he was caught in the car park screaming and shouting expletives at Anthony Taylor and going up to the minivan which was taking Taylor back to his hotel. He's going to miss 4 of the 6 Europa League group stage games, and it's a stadium ban that he's been given. And I think we sort of suggested that had to be the case. Is it enough for you? Are you happy with it? Is it a strong enough message?
When we say, are we happy with these things, it all depends upon the sentencing guidelines. If they were the maximum they could have given him was 20 games and the minimum they could have given him was 4 games, then we would suggest that probably the minimum wasn't good enough. So unless we know the parameters of what their sentencing is based upon, then it's difficult to say whether it's enough or it's not, or it's too much.
Well, it's one of the longest bans handed to a coach ever by UEFA. In 2011, Mourinho received a 5-match suspension during his time at Real Madrid for his behaviour during a semi-final of the Champions League.
So it's less than his behaviour previously. When he
dragged, he sort of eye gouged.
I know what he did. I saw him putting his finger in someone's eye. I remember him doing it. But this is taking the game and taking an official. You know, having an altercation when you have machismo between 2 dugouts is one thing. Having a premeditated perspective to go after a game and go after an official and do what he did perhaps is another.
So you think it should have been worse?
Well, I think it should be at least the same as the sentencing of his previous misdemeanors. Let me get something straight on here. I'm a Mourinho fan, always have been. I've not sat in the camp when I've been listened to on many occasions people telling me that he's a busted flush, he's done, he's a dinosaur, he doesn't know what he's doing anymore, he's lost his touch. I've never been in that camp. I think everyone at the end of the day runs out of steam at some point, but I still think he operates at a high level. I would have liked to see, and I'm not advocating for people to get involved in unseemly situations, but I would have also liked to see the referee stick up for himself and put Mourinho in his place, because I think that would concentrate a few people's minds if they were actually told a few things back, rather than sitting there allowing someone like Mourinho to bully you.
Do you think that people give him too much latitude? Do you think people are too scared to go up to him? Oh, you just mentioned Anthony Taylor didn't go back to him. Do you think he's constrained by his employment?
Would he have done that to any manager? Would they have done that to any manager? Maybe the disciplines of being a referee is you have to operate in a certain way. Maybe they don't feel confident enough because they're not ever supported, really, referees. Referees are maligned and castigated for every single mistake to a level of scrutiny that I think is unfair. There's not enough support for referees. There's not enough value of them. So maybe that doesn't give them the confidence to say, excuse me, you, how about you do want to mind your own business or we're going to have a proper problem? And if I was in that situation, I can imagine myself saying that. But then again, perhaps by the very nature of the weight put on your shoulders, by the expectations of you, a referee, and the way you're told to behave and not get involved in these situations, maybe you wouldn't. But I think Mourinho, it's a message. He's been banned for 4 games. Somewhere along the line, he'll reposition himself as the victim of this, because that's what he does as a matter of course. And there should be a bigger pushback and a bigger voice being given to referees. I'm all in the camp of making referees accountable. I've been suggesting for ages that referees need to talk to the media. They need to have a voice and have an ability. And of course, the referees, and talking to Howard Webb, he says, well, all they'll listen to is people complaining and telling them what they've gotten wrong. Okay, then we can find a way to insert them into the media so they can have a voice, and that's all they listen to, right? So we can personalise, we can make people understood, but at the end of the day, we want to make people understood as to the reasons why they're making their professional decisions. We need to make sure that referees and officials, without exceeding ridiculous levels of authority and deference to them, and understanding that the referee is an important fundamental part of the game, and without them you don't have a game, unless you're going to move towards AI and Trons running around the pitch and automating everything, which some people would prefer, I suspect. But we're in a territory now where Mourinho is a high profile, and often you see in these situations that the high profile ones are the ones that are taken down the hardest, because they're the ones that set out the message. Now, again, I go to you and bow to your statistical knowledge. I would never have pulled out the fact he'd got banned for 5 games from 11, 12 years ago. You have that to your fingertips. And if that's a case of him interacting inappropriately with a confrontational situation with protagonists that are in an equal space as him, he's now going after the authority in the game. The authority in the game is the referee.
3 times in Serie A this season for his behaviour on the touchline.
So your argument would be, I mean, obviously UEFA...
It's becoming a habit.
It's been a habit forever and a day. He is a natural antagonist. It goes with the territory. They are all combative. They're all at it across the board. There is a line, and that line was crossed. And the consequences for that seems to be that UEFA are comfortable with a 4-match ban. I would always like to know the roster. I would like to know the weighting of sentences. By that I mean, what gravitas do you put to the sentence you've given to somebody in terms of the importance of it? And if you could have given him 10 games, why did you not? What has he got to do? What is it that gets you the ultimate sanction, and what is it that gets you the minimum sanction? Because I would have thought really going after a referee, and taking the stance that he's taken. And I am also in the camp that it's sticks and stones and people can say things, and we've got to grow up a little bit as a society and develop a little bit of resilience, but we've also got to respect an element of authority. And Mourinho doesn't.
Suspension for 2 competition matches or a specified period for insulting or directing abusive language at a match official. So you get 2 matches for that. Suspension for 4 competition matches or a specified period for acting with the obvious intent to cause a match official to make an incorrect decision or supporting his error of judgment, thereby causing him to make an incorrect decision.
So where does this one fall into? Because none of those apply to that particular situation.
5 competition matches is for serious assault. 15 matches for a specific period of assaulting a match official. So
okay, so you've got to whack someone to get 15.
To get 15, you've got to whack someone. You swear at them, you get 2. Actually, I suppose halfway, the halfway house is acting with obvious intent to cause
by the nature of their sentencing guidelines, and they've whacked him, haven't they?
Yeah.
They've given him what they think is the ultimate level of what they can give him. Then maybe I would review their sentencing guidelines. I would be looking at it saying, if you want to stamp this kind of behaviour out, and no one suggests you have to curtail and bow and ultimately accept poor performances from referee, but there is a line between allowing a manager to be emotionally invested and disappointed and taking it beyond that line. And Mourinho clearly has. Even he will accept that. And then you've got... That doesn't excuse, by the way, it doesn't mean he incited people. We didn't stand on Capitol Hill and tell people to go and storm the Senate building.
But did his behaviour influence the Roma fans to give Anthony Taylor and his family that incredibly tough time at the airport?
Well, if you want to use it as an excuse, if you want to make that an excuse for individuals' behaviours, people are responsible for their own behaviour.
Absolutely, but should he feel responsible for it?
I don't think he should feel proud of that. I don't think he should think that was something commendable. I don't think he should think that was particularly statesmanlike. He's a leader of football. He's a brand name and a big leader of football clubs. He's supposed to set standards. He wants standards in his players. He wants standards in his football club. He wants people to respect and value the jobs that they do. And that means that there's a point where you have to accept that somehow you have to behave by the same standards you'd expect others to. So when your players go off the reservation, when your players behave like that on a pitch and get sent off, you'll have nothing to say, because you're the standard bearer for that sort of behaviour.
Right, it's interesting because I remember that just exactly that situation up at Manchester United against Fulham in the FA Cup, where everyone talks about the fact that Alexander Mitrovic lost his head and got sent off. He was one of 3 players to get sent off in 40 seconds. But the manager had got sent off as well for going absolutely balmy on the touchline. So sort of hamstrung Marco Silva in that situation.
People will say it's easy to be isolated when you're sitting there with no emotion invested, right? And ultimately, the emotions that you feel as a football manager, you can go back to the Gary Megson, Neil Warnock battle of Bramall Lane when they got down to 7 players each side, didn't they? Something ridiculous. And you can give it an excuse, or you can say to people that there is a line, and that line, once you go beyond that line, you don't just get to play I'm over-emotional. You don't understand the emotions of being involved in a game. No. You don't get to play that card when you've stepped above the line. You have to accept that was unacceptable behaviour, in the same way when Alan Pardew headbutted a player, same way that when people do things on the touchline which are unacceptable, there isn't a yeah but. It's just, that's not good enough. You're going to have to amend that.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.